Hey everyone, I was hoping to get this message put together sooner, but things like this unfortunately take time to set up. I just want to say that the acts of war against Ukraine break my heart, and I know as a prior service member myself that my thoughts and prayers go out to everyone who's fighting the fight that they really shouldn't have to. That being said, we have been working behind the scenes with all of our podcasts and podcast partners to put a fund together in order to pay for any refugee housing and other needs that go alongside that, like food, water, and any clothing needs. Internally, many podcasts in the Hospitality FM network have voluntarily given up sponsorship money in order to donate to the cause and are working on a unified message in order to spread throughout all of our podcasts. So this is me calling out to all of our property manager friends, industry experts, and anyone knowing of those providing lodging for Ukrainian refugees seeking safety. You can contact me directly at will with one L, W-I-L, at slicktalkmedia.com. We have an internal document that is being updated in real time. So if anyone could share this message within your network, we'd greatly appreciate it. I'm also placing in the show notes a link to our GoFundMe and landing page for Rentals to Rescue. That's rentalstorescue.com, where we're putting funds together in order to, again, provide finances for any of these lodging and relocation needs. So thank you so much for tuning into this quick message. I hope you guys are all well and safe, as I know we have tons of listeners in Ukraine and other countries in Europe. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Good morning.
Morning.
Hey.
I just saw this picture in the intro of myself. I never looked at it. And I saw this picture with a short haircut. Jesus, what happened since the start and now?
No showers, no scissors.
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, we got.
But let's maybe next week. Let's see next week. Maybe next week I will look differently.
About time. We've been waiting.
I'll take a picture of Will and a picture of Michael, and I'll tell the hairdresser, just pick one. Which you prefer? And let's see what is coming, or a combination.
It's going to be obvious.
Yeah, it'll be pretty obvious. Well, I hope you guys had a good weekend. Anything exciting happening in your guys' end of the world right now?
I took the first flight after 1.5 years, and it was the airport of Amsterdam was fully packed. It was just full. The plane was full, so that was
good.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I was in Miami towards the end of last week. Had a good.
Oh yeah, must be nice.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And yes, airports are slammed. People are understaffed. It was like hotels, airports, restaurants. Same story we've talked about many times, but it doesn't seem to be improving still.
Yeah.
So we'll keep an eye on staffing levels throughout hospitality.
I'm curious with you. You said you stayed at a Lifehouse property. How was that?
It was great.
The kayak.
Yeah, so super cool design. Their staff is fantastic. The entire internet in all of South Beach was gone. I went to 2 or 3 different hotels for meetings, and every hotel was like manually checking people in and like walking them to the door because they couldn't make key cards. So to compound the short staffing levels, the internet goes out to cut out a lot of the efficiencies. So it was an interesting time to be there, but a hurricane had just rolled through earlier in the week, so I think that had kind of messed with stuff. But yeah, it was still a great time, beautiful property, and shout out to Lifehouse for the stay.
Yeah, we love Lifehouse here on the show, so you can't go wrong with that.
Go ahead, you get it for free? They sponsored you, or you just had to still pay the bill at the end?
No,
by mentioning this, it's actually he said, okay, I'll mention you, we'll be positive, and then
we're gonna get a eventually.
Yeah, soon to come. Okay. But speaking of operations and efficiencies not working and all this other good stuff, it's going to fit in perfectly with today's episode because we have the man, the myth, and the legend, Jeremy Gall, the founder of Breezeway, on the show. which we announced last week is now a sponsor of the show for this season. So we're really excited to have him and get to dive into the story. But before we get to this, we don't have a bid eruption today, but we do have a What's With the Noise. So, Mr. Golden, I think we're going to kick it off with you and let Grandma take it away.
Did you hear that noise? It is the launch of space and civilians being able to go up in space. So over the weekend, Virgin and Richard Branson took off, I guess 6 others, and made it into space. So it is the dawn of a new era in travel and hospitality. Last week, we did predictions on what does hospitality look like in 10 years, and all of us failed to mention space. But it is a very real possibility now if you have hundreds of thousands of dollars and the ability to risk it all to go up into space. But exciting times, and the private space race is on. So let's keep an eye on how frequent this becomes and how much of a trend it is. Right now, it's just a billionaire's trend, but can it make it down to us normal people?
Well, would you go?
Not on the first 100 flights.
You gotta get all the kinks out. But no, I think it's super cool, and I liked what Richard had to say when he was up there. He said, "For all you dreamers in this generation, it's this was my dream. Never thought that we would actually get to space, and here we are. So don't it's kind of cliche, but don't dream too small. You might make it to space one day. So it's pretty cool. It's
billions of dollars.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's pretty sweet, and yeah, I think we failed to mention the space travel, which is we talked about in an episode previous, and it was like, that's way far in the future, but now it's actually probably closer and closer and closer than we expect. But anyways, enough about space. I want to welcome and introduce, like I said, the man, the myth, the legend, Jeremy Gall from Breezeway. So we're going to give him a warm welcome here. Jeremy Gall, welcome to the show. How are we doing, my man?
Good morning, hospitality. Happy to be here.
Oh, nice. Way to work that in.
Yeah, you like that? Yeah, am I the first guest to do that? I like it.
You were the first guest to actually do that.
You focus on this one because it's a nice. The whole bridge was nice, actually, from this operation to this one. Wow, you're getting.
It just came to me.
Look, we were just made to do this show together, all of us in this one moment. It's pretty great. Well, before we dive in, last week we introduced you guys as our show sponsor, and we did a Meet Breezeway video for our audience. They got to see and hear a little bit more about Breezeway, but I actually kind of want to dive into your story before we get into the prop ops of everything, vacation rentals and hotels. Can you tell us really what your journey was to creating Breezeway and what it is today?
Yeah, quickly, I started another company in the vacation rental space, marketplace called FlipKey. Got a lot of exposure to property managers on the marketing side, and just developed a thesis that I think property management in general is turning more towards a hospitality experience across all segments, and they're converging together. Hotels, vacation rentals, corporate travel, they're all sort of like mushed together already. And I think the concept of hospitality is it's big and it's growing. We work as a hospitality business basically for corporate real estate. And so I thought that experience, it's going to be harder and harder to manage. We started Breezeway to give people really purpose-built tools to manage that hospitality experience at the property, every piece of it. And that's what we focus on.
I love that. Hospitality experiences. So can you, I guess we've already, like I said, we did this last week, but for the listeners or the watchers right now, what's the biggest operation piece that Breezeway handles for operators, whether it's cleaning, maintenance, you name it? Can you say there's one particular piece for you guys?
I think it's the combination of all of those. And I think it's sort of like, when Michael walks into their space and wants to make sure that it's set up exactly the way that they want it to be, there's a lot of work that goes into that and a lot of details. And so really the main function is, how do I make sure that all those details are covered? Because delivering, however you define hospitality, delivering that means that it's really purposeful, it's predictable. People know what they're going to get when they walk in. So
Yeah.
it's less about one thing and more about how all those pieces together turn into creating that experience.
Awesome. Well, I don't know if the Michaels have any questions in particular, but last week we were really talking, and I think it was, I don't know if Golden, was it you that said the technology is going to be more operational focused to enhance the guest focus, or because we were talking about like guest experiences and all this other stuff, and you're like, yeah. Tech isn't going to shift their face.
Well, yeah. So Jeremy, last week, if you weren't tuned in, we made predictions on technology 10 years from now, and a lot of people talk about how guests can walk in and talk to Alexa and change, the music and the scent in the room and the temperature and all that. But my feeling is that a lot of people are going to, when they go on vacation, want to move away from technology, not have even more, as part of their stay. But technology on the operations side is going to be that much more important because, as we've talked about already on the show, levels of employment are at an all-time low in hospitality, which means technology has to be at an all-time high. Obviously, you agree with that. Otherwise, you wouldn't have started Breezeway. But what 10 years from now, what does hotel operations behind the scenes look like?
Yeah, I think you can still deliver that type of personalization. I think you can divorce the idea of like, I agree with you. People want less technology. Shout out to my friend John Staff at Getaway, which is, a good company where it's basically premised on, you're a millennial, you want to get out of town, drive an hour and a half away and be in the woods for, a vacation for just a couple of days, but really to unplug. And I think that's definitely true. But I think you can divorce the fact that like, you want to unplug, there's going to be less technology and yet more personalization, right? The personalization doesn't have to be your music and your scent. The personalization can be around the experience and you and like what's important to you, Michael, when you get there. How can we tailor that to you? And in ways beyond like right now in hotels, right? Like so many pieces of technology to make sure when you walk into that room in Las Vegas, your name is on the TV screen. And it's like, well, maybe, but I think it's going to be a lot more. I think you can still go into personalization without it being revolving around like Alexa and voice controls.
But is it about the personalization or is it more focusing on the relation, right? Because I think it's really important to, when you're adopting technologies, to understand your user, your customer, the traveler, to really use and building a relationship with him to get him back, right? That's the ultimate goal. And I think technology, what you said, can help there. Again, you don't want to have an Alexa in your room. And I think what you said with the Getaway, for example, is what people want. Because, of course, the hybrid working, before it was home, you were home. And the office where you were working. Now you're working at home, right? So I think that's why people moving away and they stepping away from technology for the traveler side. But I think when you're looking at the technology side for the operations, how can this be, what do you think can be used really for building a better relationship?
Yeah, totally. I think we talk to people all the time about the fact that like a lot of work goes into this, right? So you should use technology to automate the things that can be automated that you're not going to get credit for. I believe in this whole concept of like, this is a manual physical process to prepare. If you think about it in really high level terms, including like space, right? Space travel, like, somebody has to prepare everything for the next person who's going to interact with that space. And that's a really manual process. It's going to be for a long time. So you have to try and efficiently automate all the pieces that you can, where the next person isn't really going to feel the impact of what you're doing. But anything that they can feel, then you need to make sure that that part, there's a human element and a touch to that. Because you're right, Michael Rose, it's about the relationship, and you deliver that relationship. You know, the hotel, the vacation rental, the commercial real estate owner, like they deliver that relationship by making you feel that they care about your experience. And that's a lot of little things that add up to make you feel that.
So you touched on personalization though, and I as an operator, and I'm pretty sure as everyone else on this shows, realize that it's harder and harder to get more details that you need in order to create that personalized experience. You know, whether it's through bookings that come through an OTA such as Expedia or Booking or Airbnb or whatever. So with the property tech and the operational tech like Breezeway, whatever property management software people are using, whether it's a hotel one like Opera or Muse, or even, we have Hostfully on the show every now and then too. So like with these property management softwares, how do you incorporate this technology in order to better enhance that personalization with the guests? So that way they're not having to download an app every time they stay at a new place or other things like that. Like what's the overall personalization, I guess, ability with this technology on their back end?
Yeah, I think it's a smart, and you talk to most operators, they're looking at their they're evaluating, and I think they're evaluating more and more frequently their technology stack to see how these tools really interact and work well together. And figuring out what's important to their business, whether it's direct bookings, whether it's just gaining market share, revenue management, et cetera, or it's like, hey, I'm going to focus on repeat guests, and I'm going to focus on the relationship and how I'm going to do that. So I think it's a constant evaluation of that tech stack, and then finding the tools that work well together, and sort of moving the PMS, the property management software system, to it's a facilitator of a lot of the entire tech stack.
Yeah, it's kind of like the hub, and then there's branches per thing, right? It's kind of a good. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think it's interesting, right? Like you can think of it as visual, and I have in the past too. Like the PMS system could be the hub, or it could just be one. It could be one stack off to the side, because you're thinking that the experience is changing, the relationship is changing, and like these different stacks become just as important as the PMS system. They're interrelated. But I think the visual, it's going to be very interesting over the next 10 years, how that visual continues to adopt. Is it the hub? Is it one stack to the side? As tools like noise aware, tools like understanding what is going on in the property become really important to that relationship.
One of the trends we mentioned last week as well, what we see in 2030 is that hotels moving more into vacation, rentalification, more into hotels, the way they're operating, delivering a guest experience. What do you think? Are you going to become much closer to each other, or where you can see the biggest difference than probably in 9-10 years from now?
Oh yeah, I think they're going to come so much closer to each other, right? There was a quote from Marriott. I think it's getting old now. Maybe it's a couple of years old. Where he's saying like, we have thousands of these little boxes, and people don't want to stay in them. Like we need to rethink our product of what we're providing to guests and what people really want. And I think we'll definitely see that. 10 years is a really long time. If you think about what's happened over the last 10 years in hospitality and travel, it's
Flipkey got acquired.
Yeah, Flipkey got acquired. But I mean, I was talking about this the other day. 10 years ago, you would still, we might be on the show 10 years ago arguing, like literally having a serious argument about whether or not people are going to book online.
Yeah.
My first conference, people were yelling at Carl Shepard at a Verbo conference, like, I will never do instant booking. That's going to kill how I allow guests to come in and how I vet the bad ones. And ultimately now you can't not have instant booking pretty much. Like, it's just impossible.
Yeah.
So maybe similar vein to Ross's question, apart hotels, how many brands do you think will exist in 10 years? Like recognizable consumer brands.
In the hotel space?
In the apart hotel space.
Oh, yeah, I think that's a big space. If you think about the idea of this convergence, right? I think you have to expect it over the next 10 years. It's going to change, and it's going to go through maybe 2 or 3 cycles in that period of time. And I think there'll be, 8 to 10 really strong brands. If you believe that that's what consumers are going to want, and I think they will, I think there'll be some really big players in that space.
Yeah.
What's harder, operations in an apartment or operations in a box hotel?
But I don't really see what the difference would be other than the unit size is bigger.
Well, I mean, it depends. It depends. If you're talking about this concept of like, if you're talking about like apartment hotels, sort of like the Nido concept, I mean, it's so much harder. It's insanely harder. If you're talking about the concept where like, Will, you're gonna move out and you're gonna go away for the week because you have a flexible job, and now maybe you're gonna go work somewhere else for 2 weeks, and you want to rent out your apartment, offset some of your rent while you're gone, and then as soon as you come back, you're gonna, magically your place is gonna look exactly like it did before. Yeah, that is significantly harder than a hotel. It all depends on the ownership. It depends on the ownership, and then I think it depends on we're gonna have to see what happens, right? Like the closer an apartment hotel is to a hotel where everything looks exactly the same and there's common ownership, well, cool. Your operations look just like a hotel, right? But if you drift a little from that and you say, well, actually, people want unique experiences. People are looking for unique space. We're going to do some fractional ownership. People are going to own these almost more like condo hotels. I mean, this has been around for a long time, right? It gets harder. Then it's almost as hard as having, 1,000 units separated by 60 miles that are all different.
But how far technology should go? It's always the discussion, whether is technology really helping the guest experience? Of course, operational wise, a lot, right? But if there's no interaction with any human, if you go on holiday, you're receiving your code before you can check in, you don't see any people, or in the future you might say there's an iRobot or a robot vacuum cleaning your room, and the toilet is self-cleaning. How far can it go, right? I'm just thinking to which level people feel comfortable when they're really moving and when they go on a holiday, and at which levels, okay, now it's go too far, right? It's like everything is automated, and even this robot is going to my room because he sees it's dusty, or the toilet seat is turning around because it's self-cleaning. I'm just curious, like how far people see, okay, till this moment, now go too far.
Yeah, I think the question will be not necessarily what's too far, but how do you make sure that a human touch or a human element or interaction is available when the guest wants it. And otherwise, like, there's a really fancy hotel in Vermont called Twin Farms. And people who go there, when they come back, like the thing that they talk about, it's like, oh my God, like, I went back to my room and the fire was already, I didn't see them, but they came and they got the fire started in my room, and I never saw them, right? Like the fireplace was just sort of roaring. Like I never saw the staff, like unless I really wanted to. And I think there's something to that. I think there's something to like, I want to get away. And if I want to seek out a human interaction, it's there and I know it's there. That's that sort of concept. We spend a lot of time on this with SMS messaging, which we we just think it's like such a perfect medium for like, I can indicate to you, and hotels know this too, right? Like hotels have embraced it. It's just such a perfect medium to let you know that I care, that I'm paying attention to your stay. I'm not getting in your way, but I'm available at the touch of a very easy text message back. That if you need a human, you need somebody to help you, I'm right there with you.
Since COVID started, we've all kind of shared our
Yep.
travel horror stories. Like for me, it's maybe less of a horror story, but I was trying to check out of a hotel in New Orleans, and the valet parking took 45 minutes just to get my car to me. What's an experience you've had from an operation standpoint since COVID started that you were like, man, that's just horrible? And
Come on, but they put your Ferrari far away, just protected, Mike.
these people have to use Breezeway.
Yeah, I don't. I've had some pretty I've had some pretty fortunate travels during COVID. We haven't done much. I've got like a bunch of small kids. We haven't done a lot of travel. We've done a couple of road trips. Both were like very successful. Shout out to a great place outside of DC, Salamander Resort, where we stayed last year, and they were amazing, and they did an incredible job. The only horror story there is my wife went on a hike and she got totally lost with all the kids, which is hard to do in Virginia, but I think we haven't had too many horror stories. We had an interesting, just to build on that, like human interaction. Last year, we shut the office down. We wanted to get from Boston to South Carolina for family reasons. So we had to stop somewhere. So we stopped in DC and had to check into a hotel. And it was a perfect example of like, we wanted to minimize human interaction as much as possible. So yes, we still had to like check in at the desk, but we checked in at the desk. We went up to our room. We never saw another person the whole time we were there. And that's sort of just the way we wanted it.
Did you get the lock-off room, and was it called a vacation rental, or was it?
No, we didn't. We did get the lock-off room we got the lock-off room at Salamander though. And the two rooms together makes a difference, but that's a different sort of resort. I think, right before we came on air, we were talking about like, it's a great example, 100+ room resort on a beautiful piece of property. They've got the room to do it. And so now they'll put in homes, small vacation homes on the property that will be serviced by the hotel staff. So you will get hotel housekeeping, you will get access to hotel room service. You're on property, so you get access to all the amenities, but you have a private house that you just, drive right up to.
Mm-hmm. What about classification? Sorry. What about classification? Because it's pretty clear in the hotel industry for 5-star hotels, and it's still a bit unclear, of course, in a vacation rental. And of course, I think one of the criteria maybe should not be space, but maybe more like hygiene or facilities or anything like this. So what do you think about this whole kind of like this classification in the vacation rental? You think there should be something really in something similar than the hotel industry, or something differently? Because again, it could be that this specific kind of pillow menu give you kind of specific kind of rating, or is it size, or is it what kind of kitchen is included, or whatever?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary in the vacation rental space. I think as far as like, a rating system or things like that, I think what we do need, and what we're moving closer towards, and it's just happening naturally, and all parties want it to happen, is professionalization. So I think there just needs to, like, the bare minimum, there needs to be a bare minimum. And we need to continue to establish what that bare minimum is, rather than ratings up and down and multiple tiers. There just needs to be like, hey, like, everybody needs to take this seriously. We want professional operators, top to bottom. It doesn't matter if you have 1,000 units or you have one. We want, it shouldn't be a hobby. It shouldn't really necessarily be a hobby business. And there are some people who self-manage, they've got one unit and they're really, really good at it. But like, the OTAs want it that way. The regulators want it that way. Guests want it that way. And the good operators, they want it that way too.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, like, so there's 2 points that you mentioned, and in Slick Talk, when we had you come back on and do like an interview during COVID and all this other craziness that was going on, you mentioned about like the evolution of host to property manager, right? Like how we're seeing that professionalization happening. Because I think you're right, like COVID sped up a lot of stuff. We talked about, what's going to happen in the next 10 years. Well, what was going to happen in the last 5 years happened in, 12 months, like we've said multiple times on the show. And another prediction that I think, I don't know if I mentioned on this show or if I mentioned on Slick Talk with somebody else, but the hotels are no longer going to grow vertically. They're going to grow this way, in the sense of like what you're talking about, with the putting vacation rental homes on the property and spreading out horizontally, is going to be the shift because of what has happened in this last year. And I'm finding it, I'm more curious on how hotels are going to continue to expand, horizontally instead of vertically, because land and all the other, I guess, headaches of getting into that space, to build one unit on a plot of land versus to, add a wing to a hotel, who knows? But those are just some comments I had on that. And I'm just curious if maybe for you, do you see, for like professionalization and like even the hotel space, do you see this happening in a fast time period, or do you see it happening, naturally, slowly throughout time? No push, no rush, but it will happen as we continue to move forward.
I think there'll probably be, I don't know, but I think there'll probably be like a tipping point where it'll start to happen. It'll gain a little steam, and then all of a sudden it'll go a lot quicker once we hit a tipping point. But I don't think it'll be, I think hotels are going to really have to reimagine some of that inventory, but they'll do it on the next time they, like that brand or that hotel where they can't just necessarily expand. The next time they renovate and they're thinking about renovating the lobby, I expect they'll be thinking about, actually, how do we change some of the configuration here? How do we make this, a little better than a lock-off room, so that people feel like this is a different experience?
Maybe like a residential hotel / a hotel, like they split off on a hotel management side and more residential units, kind of like the Nido concept, but a little bit different.
Yeah, I like that. I think there's plenty of people who are working on that. I think that's a really good one. And I think it's also just like, it's just how you think about the room. People who are building new hotels are going to be the ones who sort of help facilitate this and push it forward, because they're going to come up with new flexible floor plans, interesting experiences and opportunities for guests, and it's going to be popular. Like, that's going to work. I'm highly convinced that that's going to work, and as soon as that works, like, that's what will drive the tipping point, where then people will be like, oh my god, we have to renovate this like really old property that we have.
Yeah.
So we're towards the end of time, and with some guests, we like to throw rapid fire out. So I'll go first, and Will and Michael can jump in afterwards. Who's the first hotel to buy a short-term rental brand, buy outright, and becomes a Hilton or a Marriott or a Four Seasons?
Marriott.
OTA for castles, buying or selling?
OTA for castles, selling. Selling right now. Now's the perfect time. Selling right now.
Coffee or tea?
What's that?
Coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee.
You have a 2-night business trip to a city, short-term rental or hotel?
Hotel.
Ross?
Italy or England?
Oh, that's a tough question. I've lived in both. I'll have to go Italy.
Okay. And one thing is, like, we talked about brands, right? We just don't see many brands out there still in the vacation rental space. We call it in here in Europe, I stay in the Airbnb. We call it almost like a brand in here. It was really pretty bad. So what do you think about this space? Just to see, do you think a lot of new brands will appear in vacation rental space, or you think hotel chains will starting some specific more own brands?
New hotel chains? You broke up for a second, but I think that was the question.
Yeah.
Do you see new hotel chains?
No, I mean more because it's still, you see Airbnb full with millions of properties. There's still not many brands out there. If you're looking at vacation rental, do you think it will be a trend to consolidate into brands, or you think it will be still really stay away from branded apartments?
I think they'll still be. I think there's going to be consolidation of brands. for sure. But I think we see this at Breezeway. There's just like so many more managers popping up like all the time. So as much as there's consolidation at the top, I think there's plenty of room for new managers who are coming into the space. And, I think that will remain a pretty fragmented experience.
I love it. Well, I guess my rapid fire question is Slick Talk or Good Morning Hospitality?
Oh, I like this format. I'm going to go Good Morning Hospitality. I think this is great.
All right.
I appreciate you guys having me on the show.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we appreciate you taking the time to come on and kind of geek out with us a little bit. I think you got some really good insight. So listeners, the viewers watching live right now or listening to the recap, go ahead, go to quick shout out, breezeway.io/GMH and learn more about Breezeway. But Jeremy, we just want to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Have a great day. Thanks for having me.
Of course.